the ramparts of the Red Fort. Your very first comment on his 10th address to the nation from the Red Fort and also on the 77th Independence Day.
Thank you very much. Happy Independence Day to you and to our listeners. Indeed, it was a very, very important occasion today. And the Prime Minister took us through the era since the independence, the struggles we have faced, the problems we have encountered, and particularly in the last 9 years since he became Prime Minister, the kind of dream that he had for this country and the efforts that have been taken during this period. He dwelt on all these subjects with a lot of candidness, I must say, pointing out where the hurdles are, what are the goals to be reached, and how do we propose to reach them. So today's speech, I would say, every part of it is full of meaning and significance as to the sacrifices that were made for this great country and how we won the independence and how we have moved ahead despite our problems we have encountered. And he particularly spoke of the three strengths that we have, that is democracy, demography, and diversity. And then went on to say that how these are our strength and how in the 9 years, the kind of mandate that was given to him to bring about the changes in this country, much needed changes, and how he has gone about the task. At the same time, the Prime Minister spoke about challenges in the shape of corruption, which has eaten into the vitals of our country, and how he is fighting against corruption so that the benefits of development reach the poorest of the poor. He also spoke about the problems posed by the dynastic or the family-oriented approach in our political life. And also, he spoke about the dangers of appeasement or vote bank politics, which is also a big hurdle for development because governments are hesitant to take decision when they think of votes. Whereas the Prime Minister feels sometimes hard decisions have to be taken, sometimes you have to take decision because the right course. And the Prime Minister also touched upon Manipur, saying that now it is fast returning to peace, and he expressed confidence in the years to come, Manipur will be on the path of development.
At the very beginning, the Honorable Prime Minister said, "Mere pyare 140 crore parivar jan." That's very endearing, and it gives a different sentiment altogether that the highest person in the country, executive government, considered each one of us as his family member. That's really heartening, isn't it?
The very fact that he chooses bhai or bhano or brothers and sisters, but today he specifically used the term parivar jano. That means my dear family members, because he considers the entire 140 crore people, that is who make up for this great country, as his own family member, and he, as the Prime Minister, is discharging his duty as a family member towards the family. I mean, when you associate that kind of sentiment, you can understand the commitment with which the Prime Minister has been undertaking task for this nation. Particularly some decisions that have been taken, some new schemes have been launched, with all keeping in mind these family members, their struggles with day-to-day existence, their fight against poverty, their fight for honor, the fight for dignity. All these are on the heart and the mind of the Prime Minister, which is what today he chose to express from the ramparts of the Red Fort.
He also made a mention about this thing which we all are looking forward to, India becoming the third biggest economy in the next 5 years. That's actually a big position in the entire world. We have been talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So in that world, which is as one family, to see ourselves at among the top three positions, the third position in the entire world, that's really something, isn't it?
When he took charge as the Prime Minister in 2014, our economy was placed at the 10th position in the order of nations. Today, it has reached the 5th position. And Prime Minister attributes to complete change that has happened in the global order post-COVID. COVID was the biggest challenge facing the entire humankind. It has changed a lot of things, and including the way we perceive today's economy, today's challenges in terms of public health, public prosperity, and development. So the Prime Minister says this change that has come of all of us. That has opened a new door for this country. That is why he says that he is confident in the next 5 years to come, India will reach the top three economies of the world. That is because of what the COVID has done to this country. How we undertook the world's mass immunization program, one of the world's mass immunization program where over 200 vaccinations were delivered to the people. And a lot of it was free of cost. At a time when people had doubts as to how would the country face a problem like COVID. But we saw the government of India encouraging our scientists, our laboratories to take up the production of indigenous vaccine, and that resulted in timely availability of vaccine. Otherwise, one can imagine what would have been our plight if we had to import these vaccines, particularly those developed and manufactured by multinational corporations. But fortunately, our own scientists, our own labs, our own Indian companies worked on developing a vaccine which got distributed free of cost to a lot of people. Such a program has never been undertaken. And we already hold the record in mass immunization in the case of polio vaccine. But this was a completely different challenge that we have achieved. So Prime Minister feels that given our innate strength, given in our innate qualities which we overcome difficulties, and the way our economy is recovering, at a time entire global economy is under a lot of stress. You can hear reports about what is happening in China, how China is facing problems of depression in its economy. We are hearing about problems faced by Europe. We are hearing of problems faced by, including countries like the United States. When all these countries are facing problems, somehow India appears as a kind of an island of hope, an island where things are different. And even when you refer to inflation, yes, inflation is a very big challenge in this country. But at the same time, somehow the government policies have ensured the kind of havoc by this inflation in other economies that has to large extent been contained in our country. So these are the areas he touched upon to show why we are on the path to progress, why we are on a path to very fast development.
The Prime Minister very clearly spoke about corruption today, which probably shows his commitment and his attitude of no tolerance or zero tolerance for corruption. There was a period when this country saw so many scams after scams 10 years back. But in the last 10 years, we have seen that there's been no such thing. It takes a lot of political will to ensure that there actually isn't no corruption.
Definitely, corruption has bedeviled us like anything. The fact that it has taken such a long time to reach fruits of our development to the people. In fact, often people quote the late Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi himself saying, when a 1 rupee sent from the center to the states, hardly 15% reaches the poor people. So the efforts of this government under Prime Minister Modi was to ensure that the poorest of the poor directly get benefited by the funds earmarked for them. Direct benefit transfer by way of Aadhaar card. The way people were enrolled in Aadhaar card using mobile and then opening of bank accounts. Jan Dhan Yojana is one of the marvelous exercise which today has found praise from international rating agencies and other bodies like International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and they have found that from various parameters, the multidimensional poverty parameters are showing positive signs for India. Lot of things are improving, and a lot of funds which would earlier get lost by way of corruption, by middlemen playing havoc, is now actually reaching people, and that is what is making difference. And that is what is now slowly seeing the revival of demand on the rural side. So that is why the Prime Minister feels that corruption has to be tackled in all its forms. And Prime Minister efforts has been in the last 9 years or so, Bashemji, is to tackle it. That is why Prime Minister said, compared to the previous period, more number of cases of corruption have been registered, they have been investigated, and also seizures in terms of ill-gotten wealth. That has also been on the very higher side. Sometimes there have been record-breaking seizures of ill-gotten money, even cash, jewelry, foreign currencies. And in all of these cases, you can see a political link, or political people are involved, or close aides of political leaders are involved. This has not happened before, because earlier you heard CBI going after the small-time corruptions. Some postman has embezzled some small amount. Things like that used to happen. But today, the government's efforts are targeted at big-ticket corruption. And you can also note as the Prime Minister pointed out, in number of projects where the way the tenders have been awarded, the system of e-tendering, bringing more and more transparency to show that the discretion of people who are holding political posts in government has been reduced. Today, things are much more on the, I would say, on the transparency level than hitherto. So this is a very important, and unless you tackle corruption, if you compromise with corruption, then you are compromising development of this country. This India has waited too long, and Prime Minister says that is why his commitment is the dream of this country is a corruption-free society, a corruption-free system where the common man does not face hassles or hurdles in getting the services of the system.
The Prime Minister also acknowledged youth power in his speech today, and he said that India is among the top 3 countries as far as startup ecosystem is concerned. And startup, we all know, young people putting all their resources, time, energy and money into startup organizations, which probably can have a multiplier effect with respect to the economics or with respect to employment generation.
Undoubtedly, Bashyapji, and for the simple reason, Prime Minister feels that the youth of this country are also the future of this country. And the way youth have adapted themselves to take up new challenges. More and more young people who are coming out of our engineering colleges, from our management schools, are willing to undertake that risk. They are no longer looking at a cozy corporate job. Rather, they want to try out on themselves. And today, the financial system is also very robust. Banks are being revitalized. Banks are being remonetized to lend money, to this kind of people who are willing to try out their fortune with their unique concepts, with their unique thing. That's why the Prime Minister says today, anybody who is 30 plus, who is rather 30 plus or even less than 30 years of age, for them, this is a very golden period. The next 25 years, we are going to celebrate by 2047, 100 years of independence. And that is going to, unicorns are being created. New projects are coming up. In most of these projects, you will see it is a young brain which is undertaking that risk. That ability to take risks and the capacity to take risks is increasingly seen among our young people who are seeing what is happening globally, who are coming with new ideas, who are willing to experiment. They are not fear of defeat. They are not fearing losses because they feel this is the only life they have and they have to try it out. And that is what is giving confidence to this nation to face the future challenges.
In today's speech, we also could very clearly see the pride of the Prime Minister when he spoke about, digital India. He said that he had recently gone to Bali for the G20 summit, where global leaders, world leaders were asking him about this entire issue of digital India.
Indeed, Bashyapji, initially when this UPI payments came in, there were a lot of skeptics among us who said, how will this work in this country? People don't have mobile phone. Country where the cash rules the roost is the only way to do it. But today, everybody carries that code. They have got it printed and they have kept it. They said, look, if you don't have a change, you can just pay me on this. Because they all have bank accounts. All these bank accounts are linked to their mobile. So we have seen a tremendous change, a change which has surprised even people who conceived it. Because this kind of approach has not been seen in any other part of the world. In terms of number of people having mobiles, number of people who are using digital transaction, people are taking to digital medium of payment, and that has brought in ease of living or ease of business.
Shekharji, thank you so much for joining in this discussion.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's address to the nation on the occasion of the 77th Independence Day. The participants were Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and S. Rangabhashyam, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR.
विशेष कार्यक्रम के अंतर्गत प्रस्तुत है विश्व क्षितिज पर भारत पर परिचर्चा। इसमें भाग ले रहे